welcome to the Pink Hair Girl podcast. I'm Sally Jane, and it's really great to be with you again. This is actually the second time I'm recording this beginning segment. So I'm sorry it's at night, and if I get funny shadows on my face, it's not ideal at night, I'm sorry. But it's only this little first part that didn't record properly. It's Sunday, the 30th of November, and the children out to the beach, and I recorded the podcast. And then when it came to editing and putting it all together, I realized the first video didn't record. Actually, I think what happened is on my phone, if I record too long, because I'm using a Lumia, it just can't handle the file size or whatever it is. So it then just cuts out. So I obviously just babbled on for too long. Also in editing, I realized that the podcast is already quite long. So I'm going to cut this segment shorter than I had before. A lot of what I had said in this part was all about my book and my great excitement about actually getting my own copy. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a podcast 17B, which will be a look through the book and me talking about that. I just think that it will be better to split it up like that. This is already over an hour, and I think that's more than more than enough. So yeah, I'm just going to split it up and do it slightly differently this time. The only other thing I mentioned in the first part was being the 30th of November, we, like I said last time, put up our Christmas tree on, it's always for us the night before or the day before the 1st of December. So it was on the 30th of November, we put up our tree with the children and put out their advent calendars, and they write letters to Father Christmas, their Christmas wish list, and the Christmas fairy comes and fetches it when she brings the first little gifts for their advent calendars, which is usually a little chocolate coin and sometimes some money with it, and then they can save up and buy something for themselves at the end of the these advent days. So that's what we've done today, and it's really nice to see Titus actually getting into it. Now that he's almost 4, really understanding a bit more what it's about and kind of getting into the family tradition, which is quite nice. And for the first time, I'm sometimes a bit controlling with this stupid Christmas tree. I mean, it's a tiny little plastic Christmas tree. I think you can get real trees here, but I just think that in this heat, probably that dropping all those needles and I don't know, we just don't do a real tree. We've got a little plastic one, and we've got mostly handmade decorations, and I really like something different, something quirky. I've got one of those knitted sweaters, those tiny little sweaters that you can put on the Christmas tree, and crafty things and things the kids have made, and like an entire eclectic mix of stuff. It doesn't match, but. And this year I actually sat on the couch and let the children decorate it completely themselves. Instead of, oh no, that branch has got too much, move it to this or whatever. We just totally let them do it themselves this time. So it's, all in the front and there's nothing around the back, but it's against the wall, it doesn't matter. They had great fun, and, after all, this is about them making memories for Christmas rather than having a perfect Christmas tree. So, they did get very overexcited as usual, but it was fine. And they've written their Christmas lists for the Christmas fairy to take tonight. And yeah, that was our Sunday was spent Christmas tree decorating. I think I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to sort of go on to the next part of the podcast and do a separate bit about the book. Hi, sorry, one quick thing I want to add is that towards the end of the video, I know that the sound and the picture is very out. Various recording things record what's called a variable frame rate, so they don't record the picture and the sound necessarily at the same speed, and I actually just need to get a separate voice recorder. So normally I solve that by recording in shorter clips, and then it doesn't seem to be as obvious near the end. But there are a couple of clips near the end where it is rather long, and I'm very sorry that the sound is so badly out. I know it's annoying to watch. It's quite jarring. So huge apologies, and I will endeavor to make sure I've got shorter clips and maybe think about some other way of recording the sound. So apologies for that. Hope you can bear with it. Thanks. Let's move on to what I'm knitting. So I haven't finished anything. No, that's not true. I'm going to just put the works in progress and the finished object section into one, because my finished object is like tiny. It's like a bit not inconsequential, that's not true, but it's it doesn't warrant an entire section all on its own. So my finished object is just a mug cozy. It's just a little mug cozy. Yeah, I think I want to sort of maybe put something Christmassy on it. I don't know how it will affect the stretch if I do a little felted Christmas tree. Don't know, not quite sure. Does it count as a finished object if I'm going to add it's finished knitting? I finished the knitting, so it counts as far as a finished knitting object is concerned. Yeah, so it's got a little base. This one's got a base as well, so you don't lose heat through the bottom, and then just a simple ribbed 2x2 rib up there. So that is my only finished object. I have two. Is it two? Should I put the other one here? Yes. I don't put it on a soft block. I have two. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Lots of bashing about here. I have two hose. Ho, ho, ho. It's suitable for Christmas. Come on, lots of half finished objects gives you sounds very merry and festive, you know. Ho ho ho, lots of half finished objects here. Okay, so what do I have? Two. I tried to ask Emma the geek if two finished socks made a pair. And he looked at me as I said, well, you know, why wouldn't two finished socks make a pair? You know, if you've got two socks, that equals a pair. But maybe not. Ta-da! These are my two socks. So let's do this one first. This was the Monet water lilies or whatever inspired yarn that Electric Carnation dyed for me, and she has a Hello Pretty shop, and I'll link to that as well. So this is my half finished objects. I did cuff down, and because I actually started another pattern. I tried to do Claire Divine's corrugated pattern, and the pattern was lovely, but it wasn't showing up the and I know it is for variegated yarn, and it works brilliantly with variegated yarn, but I wasn't getting the effect of the water, you know, the Monet that I'd wanted from it. It kind of wasn't showing up nicely. So I had done a cuff down, and I did the German twisted cast on, which normally gives you quite a lot of extra, which is normally stretchy enough. I do it for my hats and for quite a lot of things, and it's normally stretchy enough. I don't know what I did. I just did it so tight. Couldn't get it on my foot. And of course I'd kind of knit it down to here. No, I lie. I think I only tried it on after the heel. Because I knew the number of stitches was right. Of course it's going to fit me. I think I only tried it on after the heel. Yeah, I did. I was about here. And I suddenly tried it on and realized I didn't get over my foot. And so I dabbled with the idea of giving it to Rachel because it got over her foot, a bit wide, a bit baggy on her legs. I mean, she's got tiny, skinny little legs. So I thought I'm going to finish it. And then I'm going to see if I can unpick the cast on and then cast off really loosely and see if that helps. So I finished it. I put the heel I put in is actually from Claire's corrugated sock pattern. I put that garter short rows heel in. I actually quite like it. It's really nice. I put the garter short rows heels in. I also tend to, on my sock, I've got a narrow foot at the toes, and then I tend to find that sometimes socks feel a bit stretchy for that bit over the ball of your foot and the, you know, the arch and all the rest. So I normally increase a little bit. I cast on 64 stitches in my standard, and then about, can't see where I did it. If I take this off here, I'll see. Just before I put in the heel, I normally increase a bit. Yeah, there. See there, I increased there a little bit and there a little bit, just to give you a little bit more width there, and then I decrease it back down again just after the heel. So there I increased and there I decreased, and that's standard. I normally put a little bit extra in for the heel. And then I did Claire's heel, decreased there, and then I just did a standard toe, you know, decreases on the side down to 12 stitches, Kitchener stitched it closed. And then I went back up to the top. Well, actually, I got to that point and figured I didn't fit. And then I was so sad that I kind of not had a knitting tantrum. That's not true. I just didn't want to knit it anymore because I love it, and then it wasn't a fit on my foot. So that's when I cast on this one. I don't think I'd cast this one on. No, I remember I was trying to heed Sally from Wool Diaries podcast advice or suggestions or commands, depends how you interpret it. Do not cast on more socks until you finish your socks. It could be a suggestion, you know. So I did cast on these ones, because I wanted to knit something pretty so that I could feel better about my sock not fitting. So these ones I did toe up, and these ones I did the rounded toe. And I linked it. I can't remember the name of the toe. Sally sent me the link on her, and I copied that. But it's the rounded toe, and the increases are done so that you don't get such a sharp increased line. Really, it's a much sort of a smoother transition. You know, you get, because it's round, you kind of get wider quite quickly. You know, this toe at the tips there is quite a lot more pointy, and I kept thinking, gosh, these socks are so much wider, and they're not. I mean, when you get down to the sock part, they're exactly the same, but just because when you do the toe, it goes out quicker. You know, you're wider there already. So I kept thinking, oh my gosh, these socks are going to be so big, but I mean, they're not. And so there's my stripy socks. You can see these are the big stripes. And then the last time I did stripy socks, the Mind the Gap socks, you know, with the short color changes, I did the OMG heel specifically for self-striping yarn. But this time when I did that, the heel landed up very big. I don't know. I mean, the other one fits me perfectly. I don't know. Maybe I was just... But what happened was, because I was going this way, and I got to that much into the pink, these are quite big stripes. You know, they're quite wide stripes. So I got that much into the pink before I needed to start the heel. And on the OMG heel, it used up the entire lot of orange on the other side, you know, doing the heel. And when you came back, it was pink again, but it was a full pink stripe. And so it made like almost like a double, like an enormous lot of pink here. And I didn't think the heel fitted as well. I don't know why on this sock. I just didn't, I wasn't happy with it. I just didn't like the way it was. So I pulled it back to the pink here. And I did the, I actually started the heel a bit earlier. I thought that I'd not quite done. I started the heel a bit earlier, and I did, I mean, almost all the, you know, there's pink on that side, and then orange. And then when I joined it to go back in the round, there was enough orange to go, but not quite enough to be exactly the same as this pink stripe here. So what I did was, I just broke off and joined from the top of the ball. I was knitting from the inside, so I joined from the outside, just enough orange to make this stripe the same size as that stripe. And then when I knitted, all the others are the same, you know, length as these. So it's just over the foot, you've got those two that are slightly shorter, but then it sort of matches. And that was, and then I did a 1x1 twisted rib on the top, and the knit two together bind off. You knit two and then you pass them back and knit those two together, and then you knit one more and pass the, you knit two together the whole time. So, and that gives you a really quite nice stretchy cast off, but it doesn't seem to balloon too much. It doesn't bag out too much there on the top. So that was that. I finished that one. And then I actually cast on sock 2 of these before I had actually decided how I was going to fix the problem. And this time, what I did was I actually used my normal long tail cast on, because German twisted cast on is a long tail cast on, and I had just somehow tightened it up too much. It's just got an extra twist and it's supposed to make it looser. Anyway, the cast on I learned as a child was actually the long tail cast on, but the one that you do over your thumb. You don't do it between your fingers, twiddling your fingers along. You use it and you put the yarn around your thumb and then make the stitch on the needle. There is a YouTube video on it now, not that I've done, somebody else has done, and I'll put a link to that. And that's the cast on I learned as a kid. And it does this kind of the first row of knitting for you almost. So it's useful if that works in your project. It's not so useful if you want to start a project and you don't necessarily want one row of knitting when you start. So I did the normal, my over the thumb long tail cast on, but I just did it very, very loose. I didn't tighten up at all, and I think I got a good amount of stretch on there, again not too baggy. And yeah, so I used that kind of as a guide for how much stretch it needed. And this is a 2x2 twisted rib on the top. So then I went back to these and I unpicked the cast on and then tried to pick up the stitches underneath. Now, a word of advice, or yeah, normally when you unpick, you can see the stitches and you can pick them up. When you do a twisted stitch, when you do a twisted rib, the stitches are completely twisted and they don't almost form like the little stitch that you could actually pick up. It was actually only the middle stitch of the purl section that had a stitch that you could pick up, because the second stitch in the purl section became somehow, you do the twisted, I don't know. Anyway, so you actually just kind of had to create bumps to pick up, because they weren't almost live, like live stitches will run down. The twisted stitch does something very different when you're trying to pick it up and unpick it going backwards. You're not going up, you're going sort of backwards. So I had to pick up what would be the loops where they would be, rather than that they were actually there. And I not only did the cast on row, I actually unpicked another whole row to make sure that I had enough yarns to do a really stretchy cast off, and I almost didn't have enough anyway. And yeah, not easy. That was a bit of a headache, I must admit. If you're going to unpick and knit backwards to fix a cast on, don't do it on a twisted rib. Just make sure your cast on is loose enough in the beginning. And I didn't think I had a problem, because I've done German twisted for so many things where you need a bit of extra stretch. It must have been one of those days I was just working too tight. It happens, So then I again did the 2x, the knit two together cast off, and that has the stretch. It's pretty much as stretchy as the other one, and they don't look too dissimilar, and it fits on my foot. So that's the most important part, isn't it? So sock 1 is done, and sock 2 I'm still busy with. So those are my half finished objects. The sock block is down, and oh, I did cast on the other pink one as well, the pink and orange one, but that I really haven't, because I'm not used to this rounded toe yet. I need to read the pattern, and so when I need to grab something to take out with me or just knit in front of the TV, I've landed up going back to either knitting on my Monet socks that I can just go around on, or something else. So there is my my teeny weeny little toe cast on. You can't even call it a toe beanie yet, can you? A toe little strip. Anyway, so I've only done the first few rounds of this. This actually ended because I ended on the pink here. So it would have started on the orange again, which would have made them an exact matching pair. And I sort of felt that I didn't really want an exact matching pair, that it would be quite nice for these stripes, especially because it's just two colors. It would be quite nice if the stripes were opposite. So these ones are going to start on pink. So there's my little pink roundy toe and my two half finished socks. Oh, and did I say when I pulled this heel back and I did the short row garter stitch heel again. I actually just really liked it, so I did that one again. I still want to try the fish lips kiss heel. I've never done that yet, actually. So that was the heels I've done on. I mean, they look very similar, the heels. You know, I could have almost had a matching pair. That's the socks. So they're half finished, half not. Got bored, cast on other stuff. I'm terrible. Jeez, I drive Sally crazy because I'm always wanting to cast on new stuff. And she is a pretty much monogamous knitter. She'll sometimes have two projects. If it's like a socks to take out and something more complicated to do, or bigger project for at home or whatever. The fact that I have like 9 or 10 whips going in one go kind of freaks her out a little bit. This is why she's always telling me, have you finished your last project? Right, so what else are my whips at the moment? The Rhino mittens. I can't remember how much I'd showed you. I know I had pulled Mr. Rhino out. I think I'd pulled him down to protect before. And he's going up again. There's still some issues. There's still some things I need to change. So I'm not going to show you him terribly much. There's a little paw print that's going to go on the inside. And a little thumb. So, yeah, I need to work on him a little bit more before I show you what his little rhino is actually going to look like. He's looking heaps better than he did. He doesn't look like a kind of a squashed, elongated rhino anymore. But I'm still working on those. So that's my other work in progress. And then I cast on. Sorry, it happened. I should have cast on socks for the geek for Christmas. I know I said I wasn't going to do any Christmas knitting. And I'm not really. I mean, these are for the geek for Christmas. So I guess I am doing Christmas knitting. But I kind of felt guilty, and he loves socks so much. And, you know, you can kind of have socks on the go as you're doing stuff. So it's not difficult to go and, like, specifically knit something really complicated or whatever. I can have it on the go as I'm doing other stuff. And I'm quite enjoying knitting socks at the moment. So I had to go find yarn. And I didn't want anything too boring because although the geek likes quite plain colors, you know, gray, his favorite, brown, and all of those colors, I can't knit a semi-solid. I've knitted one semi-solid pair of grey socks for him, and it nearly killed me. You know, when you're knitting stripy socks like this, you knit for longer almost because it's like, okay, I'm just going to finish the next color, or I'll just get to the next, you know, color repeat or color change or whatever. And so you find yourself knitting, you know, a bit more. Oh, I didn't tell you, these were also, if you didn't watch last week's podcast, this self-stripe was from Electric Carnation as well as the Monet, and she's Electric Carnation on Hello Pretty. So after knitting, you know, these really exciting colors, I've really enjoyed watching them as they develop. I thought, I can't knit a semi-solid in brown or gray. So I went stash hunting a little bit, and I came up with some nurturing fibers, what she used to call man sock. I'm not sure if she's still calling it man sock or if she's doing the range anymore. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, it's called Woodland, was the colorway, and it is 40% merino, 40% mohair, and 20% nylon. So it's nice and strong, good for men's socks, and it is a nice variegated green and two kinds of brown in it. More sort of chestnutty brown and a more sort of darker, browner brown, imagine that. Rather than a redder brown. I'm great at describing colors. It's a good thing this is an audio podcast. Anyway, so he really likes this actually. He said, oh, that looks really nice. So these are going to be the geek's Christmas socks. But that's not what I cast on, was it? I feel terrible. I mean, come on, we've only got like what, 20 days, 25 days till Christmas now. And I kind of a bit socked out after knitting both of these and having cast on the second one for each of those. If I cast on his socks, that would mean I could have 3 socks on the needle at the same time. So I mean, you can understand my reluctance to not want to do that. So what did I do? I cast on Bonnie by Tin Can Knits. Last podcast, I showed you a ball of Hartlam yarn that I had wanted to make a featherweight cardigan in. And but there just wasn't enough yardage. And no matter how I decided to knit it shorter here or longer there or find another pattern or whatever, eventually the geometry of it, I have a really long body and really long arms and only 800 meters of the yarn. It just kind of wasn't going to happen, was it? Even with short sleeve, yeah. So at some point you have to stop trying to force the yarn into a pattern that's not going to work with the amount of yardage that you have. You know, there's yarn chicken and then there's just ridiculous. So I happened to see on the Fluph shop in England, I think it's in Dundee, I follow her on Instagram. I'll put a link in as well, that she was having a special on some drops lace. I think it's a baby alpaca and silk blend at £6 10p a ball of 800 meters. So I can't get that even here in South Africa. So I decided that if I got 2 balls of that, it would be enough to make the featherweight. And it was a lot cheaper than if I had to buy 2 balls of lace weight here. And the colors were beautiful. And I like Fluph. They're going to be stocking my book. So I like Fluph very much. And I said to Leona, can I order it? But Claire picks it up for me when she's going to be there next. And Claire has some stuff that she is posting to my sister for the next time somebody visits there or the next time somebody's coming to and from South Africa. I'm not in a rush for it. So that is what we did. I ordered, and then the picture was so beautiful. There was so many. There was greys and a kind of ice blue, a foresty sort of green, a beautiful purple, really, really beautiful purple, and a turquoisey blue. And I even reposted the picture. I'll try and put it up here. The problem sometimes with inserting Instagram pictures is the quality isn't really good enough, so it goes really fuzzy on here. I might just you'll have to either go look for it on Instagram. I did repost it on, regram it on my Instagram, or I'll put it in the show notes. Trying to pick which one. Now, I knew I was getting the grey. I was definitely getting the grey because I think a grey featherweight would make such a functional, light cardigan that you would wear all the time. And it's Claire Devine's fault because she's like the queen of grey, and grey has become, I really like grey now. So, I mean, not that I didn't like grey before, but the functionality of grey, and I just wanted to knit a grey featherweight. And the geek said to me, he's such a yarn enabler. You think you're going to tell him, I want to buy this yarn, it's really expensive. Well, I mean, it wasn't that expensive, but still, I mean, in rands and blah, blah. And he said to me, well, at that price, why don't you buy 2? So I said, yes, but I am buying 2 balls for each for the project. And he said, but another color, enough in another color as well. So then the question was which color to choose. And the majority of people on Instagram actually voted for the purple. And the purple is beautiful. It is a color I'm naturally drawn to a lot. It was a really, really beautiful purple, very rich and really lovely. But I didn't order that. What I actually ordered was the turquoise, because turquoise and my hair actually go really well together. I mean, when I'm wearing purple, it kind of blends and it's a really nice look. I don't mind it at all. But when I wear turquoise, it's such a pop. The two really kind of contrast really nicely together. And so I find that sort of from turquoise to teal range actually suits my hair quite well. And I like blue. So I ordered the turquoise. So I've ordered 2 in the grey and 2 in the turquoise. So the turquoise one, I'm not sure which one I'll make the featherweight in, and then the other one I'll probably make a light cardigan, something else. So that left the yarn that I'd had last week, having the dilemma of what I was going to do with it, free. I could do something else with it. And this was a present. I don't know if I said last time. This was actually a birthday present from Claire Divine. And it's a Hartlam yarn. I've balled it all up now. I think it looks quite grey on the screen. It's actually purple, very light purple, and in a slightly darker purple, but all in that very light saturation, and then with sparkle, you know, because come on, sparkle's cool, man. So I thought, well, I'm going to knit something else with this that doesn't need that much yarn, and I chose the Tin Can Knits Bonnie pattern, which I printed the first bit, and my printer graunched it up. So I don't even think, I don't want to show the incriminating parts of the pattern away. Sorry, this is really very graunched up. Can you see there though? It's just a simple, it's got a rolled hem on the bottom, which I'm undecided about. I'll tell you that in a minute. Anyway, so it's just got a simple, you cast on the bottom, and then you knit up, and then the lace, simple lace panel starts there, and then you just bind off or along the sleeves. So I think it's a cast off and then stitch together. A lot of people have done the 3-needle bind off, which is probably what I'll do. And it's supposed to be on a fairly tight fit, you know, between 1 to 5 inches of negative ease. You know, it's supposed to kind of sort of be quite a tight fitting thing. And because it's got no sleeves, I can easily get this out of my 800 meters I've got. Well, I mean, not, yeah, no, I mean, easily enough. I've done the sort of medium size. My gauge is a little bit tighter. So if I had wanted sort of 3 inches of negative ease, or 3.5 inches of negative ease, I would have knitted the small. But because I want about that, if I had knitted the medium, I would have had hardly any ease at all, only about 1 inch. But because my gauge is slightly tighter, I'm knitting the medium because my slightly tighter knitting plus that size will give me about the 3 inches of negative ease that this requires. And I did a swatch. I mean, like, yay me. I don't always swatch, especially with something that's supposed to be so stretchy, that it kind of like doesn't matter. What does matter in this though is that it tells you to knit to a certain length, you know, until the fabric will block to the length that you'd wanted before it's going to start the little lacy bit. So you do need to know your row gauge to know. You don't want to wash this and block it halfway through. You want to have washed and blocked before, so you know what your row gauge is. So you know after X number of rows, I will be at the place that I want to be for that lace bit to start. And then say to do a really big swatch, obviously because you want the drape of it. I didn't do a really big swatch. I did a kind of a, not such a big swatch. I did a swatch, hey, come on. Which helped me also to know that I needed to go up a size. I didn't want to go up a needle size. I liked the fabric as it was, so I went up a size in the pattern rather. On this, I did a little, just a garter edge so that the swatch wouldn't roll. And I debated doing that on the bottom of the top because I don't essentially like a rolled edge that much. I'm going to be fiddling with it and pushing it down the whole time. So I did wonder about doing the only thing that worries me is garter is always a looser gauge than stocking stitch. And it did worry me that even on the sample a little bit, that it flares out at the bottom a touch. And you don't want something that's tight fitting then to flare out over your hips. So I abandoned that idea. I thought I'm not going to do that. I may do a folded over hem. But I didn't do the fold over hem where you knit to a certain point and then fold it over and knit it as you're going along, because I think that makes quite a line. And when I've done that before, it makes a very definite line in the knitting. Whereas if you fold it up afterwards, you can catch only through half the stitch at the back when you catch it. And so you can control that it looks slightly less like a solid line when you folded it up. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So what I knew was I would just cast on and knit and then decide later. Because I mean, if I'm going to fold it up and sew it afterwards, it doesn't matter. So it just starts out as a rolled hem anyway. So I did You need to do a nice loose cast on. I think I did the thumb cast on again. I did my normal long tail thumb cast on, just really loosely again. And that gives you your first row of knitting. Anyway, it was going to be stocking steps, so it didn't matter. And then I started knitting, and it's ever so slightly stripy. Can you see that? Ever so slightly making little, very subtle stripes. I mean, you wear this with something else underneath. I think that's really, it's very light, it's very airy, and it's got a little bit of sparkle. I don't know if the camera picks up the sparkle or not. And I found needles that were actually just exactly the right size. And I didn't even measure this cable, I'm sorry. I don't know what size cable it is. These are Knit Pros. I think they're Knit Picks. I can't remember where they're Knit Picks and where they're Knit Pros. I think we call them Knit Pros here, and in Europe and in America they're Knit Picks. And they're a 375 millimeter. No idea what that is. Actually, over the packet will tell me. It's a 375. No, sorry, it's a 3.5. A 3.5, which is a US 4. So it's a US 4, and yeah. So that's my little Bonnie by Tin Can Knits, knitted in my Hartlam yarn with sparkle with Stellina. I don't have the ball band here with me, I don't think, to tell you what the other things are in it. I did show it last time, and I'll link it again in the show notes as to exactly what's in it. It's got Stellina, and it's got, I think this has also got the baby alpaca in it. It's very soft. And as I say, because these needles are exactly round, I don't need to magic glue, it fits exactly, and I can just go round with not having to stop or magic loop or anything. And that's been really nice. It's been I'm knitting another whole stocking stitch project, so it doesn't seem that much different to knitting socks, but actually knitting lace on a bigger needle is, because you're knitting quite loosely, it's been a whole different experience in my hands. I actually had to get used to it. I felt like I was knitting with tree trunks in the beginning, but it's so much less tension in my hands. I find when I'm knitting like socks, you know, you're needing a tighter gauge, you're knitting socks, you don't want them to get holes, you want to be a tight fabric, it's harder on the hands. I felt like there was one day where I knitted a lot on my Monet socks, and I found my hand was really sore, you know, my hands and my wrists, and I could feel that I had been doing a bit much knitting at that point. And to knit with this, it's much lighter in your hands, and there's no strain of, you know, your yarn and needles. You're not trying to knit at a much tighter gauge, and it has been actually a real pleasure to knit this. So I've been knitting this in front of the TV. I finished watching, which is like really late, I'm so behind everybody else, but I finally finished watching How I Met Your Mother. I know people hated a lot of people hated the ending. I was a bit ambivalent. I think given that everybody thought that the show was all about going very predictably towards in How I Met Your Mother, you know, like that it was very much predictably going towards one point, that I think they had to do something different at the end. So I didn't hate the ending. I thought it was okay. If you've watched it, what did you think of the end? I didn't. And then I started watching last night for the first time Orange is the New Black, which I haven't watched. I know I'm so far behind being like up to date and hip with exactly what's happening and the newest things coming out. So I watched 2 episodes of that last night, and it wasn't bad actually. It was alright. You know, it was easy TV knitting, and I could just knit this round and round. It was nice and loose in my hands, and so I've enjoyed knitting it. But the one thing you do notice with lace, I'm knitting 190 odd stitches, and it takes a long time to get anywhere, you know. If you knitted this many rows in a DK or worse than if you're doing a cardigan, I mean, you're just about to be done. But I mean, I'm obviously I'm knitting, it's really stating the obvious here. If you're going to knit a lace cardigan or project or top or whatever you're going to knit, you're going to be knitting for a long time. It just kind of struck home as to exactly how long I was going to be knitting when you knit the entire evening and the whole of the day, you know, part of the day before, and you really haven't got kind of much more than sort of, you know, a couple of centimeters. Anyway, so that, I think, is all my works in progress, and my tiny little finished object that I've thrown in there, and all my other hose half objects. Yes, so let's move on. A while ago, I'd spoken about wanting to do a log cabin blanket, but not having any DK or sufficient DK. I didn't really have much DK in my stash at all. And most of it I'd used, and the scraps I had were not anywhere near, and I didn't want to buy a whole bunch. And then I went into a little local haberdashery, crazy mixed up shop here, and the lady had some of these yellow balls of wool, and it is a 100% pure new wool, double knit, in 50 grams, and they were 20 rand, which is just under $2. I didn't think $2 for 50 grams for knitting a log cabin blanket was terribly expensive. I realize it's not hand dyed. I realize it's not, you know, fancy. And they had a red, and they had another yellow, sort of more sunshine yellow, and then this very light lemon yellow. So I only got a couple and thought I'll get some more later. And then Sally said to me, why don't you over dye the light yellow? So I went back and got some more, and haven't quite been brave enough to dye it yet. So I started yesterday to skein some of the, because I mean I can't obviously dye in a ball. So I started to skein some of them yesterday, just to get them ready to dye. As I say, they're 50 grams, and started watching some videos on how to dye stuff. I do have some dye. My friend Heidi, the Heidi Bears that does the African crochet animals, had sent me some dye a while back, because she's also South African, and I've just never been brave enough to use it. She sent me a skein of yarn to use it with as well, but I kind of, you know, I don't like not being good at something. It's terrible. I'm just like my daughter in this way. And so the thought of messing up a skein of yarn, yeah, kind of like the pressure of dyeing, I don't know. I'm not that good with color stuff anyway. You know, I can put it together when I'm designing and I can see things, but I can't, yeah, like the tiny nuances and stuff. It's not my thing. It's not ever going to be my thing to be. I mean, there are amazing dyers out there that do the most amazing jobs and have that fantastic eye of color, and that's, you know, that's what they do. So I went back and I did actually buy a bag of the yellow with the thought that I'm going to try and dye it. So I've scanned up some of these, and I've started watching some videos, and I know there are two ways that I can do this. And what I want to know is, I'm not asking any dyer for their secrets, but basically if I'm thinking about this in the right way, you know, am I going in the right direction with this? Seems to be that I can either stove top dye it. So I put it, you know, mix the dyes and the doodah, and I've watched Donna Biddle's video on how much of this and how much of that and how to mix it all up in the pot and the vinegar and the salt and blah, blah, blah. And so I can do that on the stove. I sometimes worry about that in the pot, because you're not supposed to agitate it too much. I get that. You want to felt the thing. But do you necessarily get the color soaking through everywhere the same? Or do you get more sort of spots of more variation? I mean, I know it's a semi-solid in the end. It's not going to be absolutely solid. But is the dye going to take differently in some parts than the others? Is what I'm a bit concerned about with the stovetop dye. What my thought was to do it not, I want a solid, semi-solid. I mean, I know it's not going to be a full solid. I want some, I'm just in a log cabin blanket. You know, I want to make them in the different bits. So my thought was to do it in a basin, you know, and to put the color in there, but to be able to, at a cooler temperature, make sure the color got through everywhere and add colors and get it to the color I wanted. But then obviously you've got to fix it with the heat onto that, you know. And I don't have a microwave. My microwave blew up and we just never bothered to replace it. So then I Googled videos that said if you'd hand painted stuff or hand painted, some people have done bats, you know, like a fiber, and then rolled it up in cling film. I think you guys call it saran wrap in America. I'm not sure. The plastic cling film, plasticky stuff that you can wrap up the individual skeins in that, and then you can steam it in a pot for each individual one so the colors don't run, and then individual saran wrap, and then you can put them in the pot in a steamer, like a vegetable steamer inside the pot, and then you can steam them for about 45 minutes. So if anyone has tried this, or if anyone knows that might possibly work, or if I am totally getting the wrong end of this and I am much better sticking it in a pot, please let me know. But that is my planning, that is my plan for the yellow yarn, is to have a bit of a play over the holidays and see if I can come up with any colors that I can start my log cabin blankets. I mean, how bad can it be? I'm doing a log cabin blanket. I mean, they don't have to be precise colors. They really can be just play around with different colors that I've kind of thrown at it. And they're only 50 grams. And I can always overdye it if I don't like it. Can you hear I'm convincing myself that I can't mess this up? So that's my planning, is that I want to make the log cabin and I want to do some experimental dyeing. I'm really leaning towards get the color right, get what I want in a basin, then steam it. But if you think I'm way off here, please let me know. Okay, right, so that's my planning. Okay, next section will be answering some of your questions. Okay, so we've got all the knitting out the way. I've told you all about the book. The knit-along. I didn't speak about the knit-along, did I? Okay, the knit-along. On Pink Hair Girl group, on Ravelry, I'll put links up. There is a knit-along. It is called the Where I Live knit-along, which is was launched at the same time as the book launched. It's basically, the book tells you a lot about where I live. So this is a knit-along for you to tell me where you live. Any object, finished object counts that you've knitted between the period when the knit-along started, and that you can link somehow to where you live. People have done such creative stuff. The colors or the patterns of stuff, or something's named after something where they live, or the colorway is named after what. There've been some really, really great projects. So anything that you can link to where you live. I mean, it can be as simple, it's getting really cold now in the northern hemisphere where I live, and so this is my Where I Live project. Or this reminds me of spring flowers in fields, and that, you know, whatever that you can convince me fits into the Where I Live theme. And then there are prizes for that. Where have I put those? I have shown them before, but in case there are new people on the podcast. Actually, there's a picture on the thread. I'm not going to show them now, because otherwise I spend a lot of time every podcast showing you the same things. And those of you that have seen them already. Why I'm going to wait is because the two yarns from Hartlam that are going to be part of the giveaway that are beautiful. The one is Foundry, that the Josie Socks is knitted in. So it's actually, let me find them now quickly. It is actually this color. And it's called, the color was called Foundry, specifically because Johannesburg is a mining area. There's lots of gold there, sometimes called Igoli, which means gold, city of gold. There are gold mines there and other metals and stuff. And so this was not only the colors of the city, you know, the kind of buildings and gray and all the rest, but also the colors, kind of, if you see there, you know, all these sort of earthy colors in here and the grays and all the rest. So not only that, but also that Johannesburg is a city of minerals. Is it minerals? Are minerals like, I'm going to look stupid now. Are minerals like the diamonds and the thingies and the gold and the stuff is metals. Sorry, having a moment there. Precious metals. Johannesburg has precious metals. So the yarn that Michelle is sending is the Foundry colorway, which is very exciting. And the other one is a purple yarn, in a lace purple yarn, pretty similar to the jacaranda shawl. So I want to actually show you those next week. So then I'll go through all the prizes again. Otherwise, it just makes this a bit long. The prizes that I've got so far are in the group. There's a picture. I've got mohair. I've got the book. There's a physical hard copy of the book and 2 ebooks to be won. There is project bags and beaded stuff and Wilson's toffees. If you watched my Julia episode, you'll know about Wilson's toffees, and buttons, little African animal buttons. I mean, there's heaps of stuff, and South African recipe tea towels. And I'll show you the full thing next time when I've got the new yarns to show you as well. So that's the knit along. We've extended the end date until the 31st of January. It was going to end in the 2 weeks time, just into the beginning of December, but it's such a busy time of year and people are doing exams and are end of year and Christmas knitting, and so we left it until you've even got loads of time after Christmas finishes and to knit. Oh, someone's squeaking their brakes outside, sorry. You've got a load of time to knit into the end of December. So the 31st of December, the knit along will end. So I think that kind of gives people a bit more time over the Christmas season and a bit of time after Christmas to finish up projects. So that's that. And so yeah, go and enter your projects. It's got such a wide range. I mean, you can really put anything and kind of give a story that fits in, you know, whatever. It's winter and I'm knitting these, so you know, whatever, just join in. There's lots of really nice prizes. And the prizes for, it's not just finished objects. I'm not just going to do a draw of finished objects. There's the fastest needles first, which has a winner already. The first project's been put up already. Then there's going to be the chattiest person on the chatty thread. There's going to be the best story, the story that I think is the best. So tell me a really great story, you know. There's going to be the draw, just from the finished objects, there'll be draws. There's going to be an Instagram. If you've linked the tag, the Where I Live knit along, there's going to be a draw from that. So there's lots of different ways that prizes are going to be drawn. Yeah, so come and join along with that knit along. It should be really fun. So now that I've got that out of the way and remembered that, to my questions. So a while ago, like really ages ago, BZ Mama Tanja asked me the backstory why I have pink hair. And the very next episode I was recording, I knew that I was planning to dye my hair, and I thought it needed to be nice and pretty and, you know, newly pink before I told the story of why I have pink hair. And I recorded the next episode and completely forgot about it. I didn't say a word about it. I totally forgot. And then, of course, like time went on, and then your hair starts growing out a little bit, and then it didn't feel as fun to tell her the story then. So I had to wait until I'd re-dyed it now. So she's wasted a really long time for me to tell the story of why I have pink hair. And then yesterday or Saturday, can't remember. Yesterday was Saturday. So must have been yesterday, sorry. Yesterday I put up a picture on Instagram and I said I've redone my hair. Did anybody else have questions about pink hair, or why, you know, related to pink hair, since I was kind of covering that topic? So the why I have pink hair has kind of changed over time, because I have now had pink hair for about 5 years. I think I first did it in 2009. And it's been about 5 years now. So the reason that one starts to do something in the beginning is not always the reason that one carries on doing something later on. So I had been living in England, and I had come back to visit South Africa, and I was in a it's hard to know with stories like this how much to share that doesn't, you don't want to do like an agony auntie section. But I still also believe in the power of stories. I believe in the power of when you tell your story, it sometimes resonates with somebody else and makes, validates their story sometimes. Um, and that in sharing, it kind of builds people up. And sometimes you can't identify with somebody's story, and that's fine, but sometimes somebody really identifies with it, and it helps them to understand their story better, or it helps them to find comfort in something or the strength to do something where they might not have had that, before. So if you feel this is an overshare, I'm really sorry. But in sharing my story before, and it's on my blog anyway, in sharing my story before, I have touched people, or connected with people that have a similar story, and for them it has been a sense of encouragement then for both of us. So I came back to South Africa on a visit. I hadn't been back, for 2.5 years. Was it that long? Yeah, no. I went over when I was pregnant with Caleb, and he was 18 months old. It was the first time he'd been back. Yes, it was just 2 years, just under 2 years I'd been in England. And I was desperately unhappy. I was very, very, very unhappy. And I had just come for a visit. And the closer it got to the time to go back, the more panicky I became. I actually started to feel physically unwell at the thought of going back, and started to perceive how unhappy I had been. When you're living through something, sometimes you just kind of put your head down and get on with it, because you don't see any alternative. You're just in it, and you're too much in it to see any kind of alternative. And I just realized I couldn't go back. I was in a very unhealthy relationship. The psychologist labeled it an abusive relationship. Never physically abused, but a very verbally, I would call it a destructive relationship on both sides. I don't think we were a good match at all. And we've both remarried, very different people, and he is completely different with his, well, from what you can see on the outside, who knows. It was very hard on me, and not ever romantic, not kind. It was not a good place. And I'm a very strong kind of fight back kind of person. We just clashed all the time. It was horrible. And his wife now, he holds her hand and he opens car doors for her, and he is gentle, and he just needed somebody different, And I had to come to the place where I realized that I couldn't be in this relationship anymore, and I needed that step back to be able to show me how desperately, desperately, desperately unhappy I was. I was actually physically sick at the thought of going back to that much unhappiness. I found England in some ways quite difficult. The weather is very difficult to adjust to if you're used to this much sunrise or sunlight. But it wasn't just that. I had really good friends there, and I had settled into a way of life. But when you're living in a different country and you're lonely within your own relationship, it is a very lonely place to be if you're then also dealing with a culture that is very different. So I decided not to go back and to end the relationship. And so it was a pretty traumatic time all round. I had small children. Rachel was 4. Caleb was not yet 2. And it wasn't that great. And I just decided I needed to do something for me. So I put these pink streaks into my hair, just a couple across the front of the fringe, and it just made me feel happy. It was just fun, it was just a bit different. And the dye washed out very quickly because I had originally wanted my highlights, kind of pink highlights over my whole head. And the hairdresser had been reluctant to do that. And I think because the kind of dyes that they had access to, and I know now a lot of the fashion colors and brighter colors is becoming more common and more popular, so the hairdressers are getting better dyes. But at that point, the dye would wash out in about 2 to 3 washes. So if you bleached your hair to put on a fashion color and had washed out in a couple of washes, you wouldn't be terribly impressed. And this color in the front of my fringe washed out so very quickly. But I was kind of addicted. I think it's a bit like having tattoos, really. You kind of get one and then you want more. So then I found a friend of mine that had her hair purple, and she suggested her hairdresser and that they would use a different type of dye, and that this one was a bit more long lasting. And so she did where I first had foils when you're doing highlights. So this was 7 hours, 8 hours in the hairdresser, because first of all you go, then they do all the foils. So they lift all the little pieces, put the blonde on, and leave you to sit with that on, and then wash all of that off. And then they did they take left, so some of my hair was left its normal color, some of my hair was blonde, and then some of those blonde pieces they picked up and did pink on that. So then it was foils again to cover all of those bits with pink, and then that was rinsed off, and then it was cut, and then it was styled and all the rest. That was a long time in the hairdresser, but that was more like an idea of what my whole head being pink was like. But that's high maintenance. You've got to go to the hairdresser all the time. They've got to lift the hair all the time. They've got to do the highlights and the foils and all the rest. And because every time you went, sometimes new pieces would become pink. Slowly my hair was becoming sort of more all over pink, and I just decided, well, why not just bleach it? And there was enough of it at that point that if I had bleached up until where the regrowth was of the because my hair is quite light, it's quite similar to Rachel's color, although I don't have any red left, which is kind of why it wasn't so sad to sort of dye all my hair a completely different color. When you've had Rachel's color hair, which is this beautiful auburn strawberry blonde with so many different sort of variations, she's got the most spectacular hair, and I grew up with that. I also grew up with being stopped in the street and told how nice my hair was and things, and so when it had lost the red and was more sort of mousy brown, I would often just put highlights in or things, but it never got back to sort of being that amazing. So by this time I did lots of highlights, and I'd done the pink in that way for quite a long time, so a lot of the hair was pink already. So I said to the hairdresser, why don't we just bleach the part up until the regrowth, and then dye it pink from here, and then over dye everything else pink. So that had been highlighted blonde, that had been pink before, and some of my hair underneath it wasn't that dark anyway, and just dye the whole thing pink. So we did that, and now the geek and I do it myself. He just only ever bleaches the regrowth. So it only ever bleaches once. The hair itself, it doesn't ever get re-bleached and stuff. It's only ever that one little bit that gets bleached. And because I have light hair, I only need to leave the bleach on for about 15 minutes, 15-20 minutes maximum. And then I rinse it off. So I haven't found the process to be particularly hard on my hair. And I use a lot of conditioner and treatments and stuff in between. But because every hair has only ever been dyed once, it's pretty soft. I mean, I use treatments and stuff on. It's not hard. It's not bristly. It's not broken ends or anything. I think if it had, I would have stopped doing this ages ago. It doesn't seem to be that hard on it, just to have the bleach on for those 15 minutes. So the geek will bleach it up until the roots, and then we'll put the pink over everything else just to kind of top it up. Oh, and how does this link into my original sad story? I woke up and I looked in the mirror when I had pink hair, and it was kind of this, not only did it make me happy, but you'll see on my blog it says there that it was like seeing myself again in the mirror. That after a relationship, a very controlling relationship, with fighting and unhappiness for so long. I had lost who I was. And I looked in the mirror and it's like, oh, there you are. Like, I'm, back to, I felt a connection again with that creative, slightly different, a little bit crazy person inside. And it just made me happy. You can't look, 5 years later, I can have a bad day still, but you can't look in the mirror and really see pink hair and not smile a little bit. It's a bit crazy. And so that's why I started dyeing it like this. Why did I carry on? I have moved on so much from there. That's not my reality anymore. I'm a completely, I don't want to say different person. Everything, all your experiences and all the things that happen to you all mold, how you are and how you change and all the rest. I mean, I've got Rachel and Caleb. I wouldn't change anything. I'm glad I had the strength to move on to something different when I did. But yeah, so pink hair helped me to reconnect with who I am. And one of the interesting things about having pink hair is that people expect that you're going to be a little bit crazy. It's out there. You kind of advertised it from the beginning, and it's not an attention seeking thing. A lot of people say, oh, people with pink hair, they just want everyone to stare at them, and different colored hair, and it's all just about attention and whatever. If that makes you happy to think that. It makes me happy to have pink hair, and it is a constant reminder to myself to always stay true to myself, to always find those things inside that make me happy, and that my life beats to a slightly different drum to other people. That found the creativity in myself again, started knitting more, found this whole wonderful world of Ravelry and all the rest. And my life took a completely different turn. So pink hair just reminds me to stay true to myself, you're not defined by what has happened in the past. You can use those opportunities, but you are responsible every day for making the decision to be, or the decision about who you're going to be and how you're going to be that person. And so it just carried on, and it kind of became a signature. All my designs are under Pink Hair Girl Designs, and I just really like it. It's fun. It's just a little bit different. Like I said before, people see you and immediately know you're a little bit different. They're not surprised when you do different things or are out of the ordinary. When you homeschool your children and your side job is a knitting pattern designer, nobody's really surprised by that when you have pink hair. You get fair amount of freedom to be a little bit strange and to wear slightly strange things and to say outrageous stuff and whatever you like, because you're strange to start with. So there's a comfort in it. There's a kind of a comfort in having pink hair. So Tanja, I hope that answers your questions. Bit of a long answer, wasn't it? Basically, I have pink hair now because it makes me happy. And I managed to find who I was again by having it. Now, I asked on Instagram if anyone else had any other questions about the pink hair. So I just want to see what they were. Paulie Knits on Instagram said, how do I get such a bright pink, and what is the brand I use? Like I said before, some of them washed out really quickly in the beginning when I was trying this out, and the brand I have settled on and have used for at least 4 of the 5 years that I've been doing this is called Special Effects, and this color is called Atomic Pink. I have tried all sorts of other brands and nothing lasts as long. My hair will grow out before the color washes out. So you'll see in some of the other podcasts, okay, it might not be as bright pink as this, but it stays, it'll tone down a little bit, but it will stay pretty much pink the entire 8 weeks before I re-dye it again. I tend to re-dye it every 7 to 8 weeks. That's roughly the time I use. And it does grow out, hair. I'm just not doing it any more often than that. It's just not good for my scalp or needing to convince the geek to help me any more than, every 8 weeks. And so I use Atomic Pink is the pink I use. Highly recommend the brand. Lasts for ages. Good color. So we bleach it into where it's grown out, rinse all that off, then he puts the pink on, we spread that over everything, and then I sleep on it. I sleep with it with the pink on overnight, and I wash it out the next morning. the dye is very hair safe. It's actually got conditioners. It's actually good for your hair. So because it's a color, like it coats the hair rather than, I don't know, it does something. Anyway, it's called a semi-permanent, which is, I mean, pretty permanent after 8 weeks if you ask me. It depends on your hair condition, depends on the permeability of your hair, all of that kind of stuff. I've got to say that up front. Not everybody's going to get the exact same color as me. I have very light hair to start with. I don't need a lot of bleach. I also don't bleach it white because the color is so bright. If you're doing blue or those sort of colors, you have to bleach it white, because if you put blue onto slightly yellow hair, you're going to get green. So I don't have to bleach it completely white because I'm putting a pink over it. And if it's slight yellow or orange in my hair to start, it doesn't matter. It's getting, you know, the same color shade over it anyway. So yeah, mine lasts that time. That's what we do, bleach that bit and then dye over the whole lot. And it lasts long enough for me. So that's the color I use. How do I keep it so bright and shiny? Many vibrant colors I see look washed out very quickly. That's from Knit British. I think I've kind of covered the same answer there. The brand I use, I have light hair, I bleach it, and then I use a lot of treatments in between. You know, I condition my hair well, I'll put treatments in between, I look after my scalp, I look after my hair, just like anybody else that's having color treatments, or if you have highlights or bleached hair, whatever, you always have to look after your hair. So that's what I need to do. Knitter Sue, do you have to bleach it first before dyeing it? Yeah, I've just said. I imagine it would dry out quickly. Bleached hair, also different people's hair reacts very differently to bleach. I don't get very dried out hair. I mean, this is really, I mean, my hair is pretty soft. It pretty much feels exactly the same as before I had pink in it. Doesn't feel brittle, it doesn't break any extra. I don't do a lot of styling of my hair, if you'd noticed on the podcast. It's kind of either like this or it's up in a ponytail, or I might do some pigtails or something. But yeah, I don't use a lot of heat on my hair, so I will wash it. Sometimes I just let it air dry, or I will blow a quick blow dry over it. I don't style it a lot and all the rest, which I think the added heat and the bleaching and everything else might break it up more. So so far it seemed fine. And do people ask you in town why you have bright pink hair? Yes, sometimes they do, mostly small children, and parents get terribly embarrassed, you know, because little children will go, oh, mommy, that lady's got pink hair, or why does that lady have pink hair? And the parents are always terribly embarrassed. I mean, I've got 3 children, I know what it's like. I am in no ways embarrassed or offended if children ask me about my hair. I do sometimes try to convince them it grows this way. I did tell a little girl at Rachel's Cub end of the year barbecue party braai on Friday. She said, how do you get your hair like that? And I said, but it grows like this. And she looked at me, and she knows that she knew this wasn't true, but she didn't actually like directly want to say to an adult, you're telling a big fat lie. So she says, I'm going to go and ask Rachel. So yeah, children ask you questions, they want to touch it, or is it a wig, or whatever else. Adults, often on social media and places like that, will ask me. There are not that many before they know me, like strangers on the street, that will ask why I've got pink hair. Quite a lot will say, wow, I really like your hair, or something like that. But I don't think I've ever had anybody stop me in the street beside a child and say, why have you got pink hair? And I live in a fairly small town, a neighborhood suburb outside Cape Town, and everybody knows me now. You know, I'm the pink hair lady, and you know, the ladies in the post office know me, the shop. I mean, I'm recognizable, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad. My children love it because they say they can't lose me in a shopping center. You know, they can just find their mom really easily. So yeah, people have asked me why I have pink hair. Oh, the funniest story was somebody in a shopping center. You know, they said a video that went viral ages ago, that girl that was texting or on her phone, and she fell into the water fountain, and the CCTV camera caught it, and it went viral over the internet. Yeah, I kind of had a similar issue, except the woman was so busy staring at my hair that she walked into a pillar in a shopping center. Shame. I did feel a little bit bad, but yeah. And I think that was all the questions. So I hope that's answered all your questions about why I have pink hair. I have pink hair now because I love it, and because it's fun, and because it reminds me to be happy, and yeah, so that's why. And I think that's it for the podcast. We'll wrap it up there. It's been lovely to chat to you, and speak to you next time. Bye.